welcome to the second session of the Glasgow Museums Art Connections series. So in this series we're going to be looking at some of the artworks from the Glasgow Museums collections and then using them to inspire us to make our own creative works. So in this episode, in this session, we are going to be looking at casting shadows. So if you're interested in that and want to find out more, stick with us and here we go. So today we're going to be looking at light and dark and how we can use that to create shape and to create contrast. So we're going to be looking at some works from the collection, and they're all made with different mediums and different styles, but what they all have in common is they use shadow as a means to create composition. So we've seen there how these artists have used light and shadow, how they've created negative spaces and then used that to draw the viewer in and convey meaning. This is what we're really going to try and achieve with our works today. So we're going to use a Japanese concept called notan, and notan is essentially meaning that light and shadow are in balance together and they need each other to exist. So we're going to use this concept to make a work about ourselves, a personality portrait of sorts. So what I want you to do is to pick at least 4 symbols or shapes that you feel relate to yourself. It could be something to do with your interests, it could be something you are drawn to, or it could just be a shape that you think visually appeals to you. So you can either write these down, or if you're working with a group to do this session, you can discuss this together. So yeah, let's get started. So we're going to need our piece of white square paper, and we're going to need some scissors, we're going to need a pencil, and we're going to need some black paper, but not until later. So we're going to start off and we're going to be drawing on the symbols and shapes we were thinking about earlier. And we're going to be drawing those from just one side of the piece of paper. Now, you'll notice with mine, I am going for a kind of leaf and plant-based theme. It's something that's important to me, something that I'm drawn to, and something that I just like, really. So you'll see on this first side, I'm going to be drawing a series of kind of shoots and leaves from one side, kind of spring-like there. And once you've done one side, we're going to move on to the next, and I'm going to move up to this top side here, and I'm going to be drawing in a big kind of triangular leaf. And as I've said before, like, you can really draw whatever you like, but there's only a couple of things that you really need to keep in mind. The drawings always have to go off one side of a piece of paper, and I'd really keep them as simple as possible, because otherwise it's going to be a little difficult when you come to cut them out later. But definitely doing one side of the paper at a time. I'm just going to do a couple of little extra shoots off that top bit though, and that will be our drawing. So what we want to do now is we need to cut them out, and I'm going to start with this top side. As I said, cutting from one side of the paper at a time makes it a lot easier. And what I'm going to do is just very carefully cut out the shapes I've drawn. Now we're going to need to use both the shape that we're cutting out, but also the piece of paper that's left behind. So when we're cutting this out, we want to try and be really careful so that we can keep both of those things. So I'm just going to carry on now, continuing to cut out my wee shapes, and yeah, just taking my time with it and making sure I'm trying to keep the square of paper kind of intact the whole time. So as I'm doing this, you'll see I'm laying out my extra pieces I've cut out around the square that I've left, and you'll start to see what we're trying to achieve with this. So if I just cut out my last little bit, and then I can show you, we're wanting to lay them out so they're kind of a mirror of the place I'd cut them out from. It's focusing on the positive and the negative space from the shape. And once we have both of these, it kind of feels like they're growing out of the piece of paper that we started with. I'm just cutting a couple of wee extra bits there out of my leaf patterns, so I'm just going to put those in place. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to rub out any of the pencil lines using a wee rubber at the end of my pencil. It just makes it look a bit neater, and then I'm going to put all of my pieces to one side, and I'm going to bring out my big piece of, so I'm going to get my big piece of black card out there, and I'm going to take the square piece of paper and I'm going to place that into the middle of my piece of card. Sometimes it's best to put that at an angle so you can fit the rest of the pieces in. And then what I'm going to be doing once I've got that in place is I am going to be placing all of my wee pieces around the edge in the mirror image as I did before. So I'm going to start with the larger ones, and I want them to be coming out so they're at the same angle, coming out from, once again, if you do it from each side at a time, that can be handy. I'm just going to work my way around, making sure I've got the positives and the negatives in place. Just going to put that last piece, and yeah, there it is. So now our final step is we're going to need to use our Pritt stick and glue that into place. I think it's much easier to start with the big square piece of paper. So I'm just going to put that down, get a little bit of those out of the way, and I'm going to be quite careful when I'm doing this and just put a little bit of glue on all the little corners and crevices of the piece I've cut out. And then so once I've done that, I'm going to flip that over, and I won't worry too much about getting glue on the piece of black paper because it dries clear anyway, so it's all good. And then I'm going to stick it all down, put that all into place. The square piece of paper has a tendency of going a little bit off skew, so I'm just going to put that back, and then I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do the same with all the small pieces that I cut out as well, working my way around as methodically as possible. So I'm going to glue that into place, and then I'm going to continue on and put all of the rest in as well. So once you've got those all stuck down into place, you have finished your shadow artwork. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll see you at one of the Glasgow Museums very soon. Okay, bye bye.